If you ask me, nothing is cooler than seeing a comic book character use their superpowers on the big screen. So I rounded up my top 10 favorites for your viewing pleasure. Now, what makes a cool superhero movie power?
Your phone charged.
It is a subjective question, to be sure, but I've chosen the ones that are visually dazzling, have a fantastical effect, and ultimately give me nerd chills all over. And you can't argue with it. It's practically science. So let's power up and get down to it. Appearing out of nowhere to kick off this list is the power of teleportation. The sorcerers of Kamar-Taj use teleportation portals to move from one place to another, and they certainly know how to make an entrance.
What, you wanted more?
And it turns out portals also make for a handy weapon in a pinch. Blink showed us the tactical advantages of portals, allowing her teammates to hit and run in an instant. But moving from one place to another on a whim has never looked cooler than in the opening of X2 X-Men United when Nightcrawler infiltrates the White House on a mind-controlled assassination mission.
Oh my God.
Using his mutant gift of teleportation, Nightcrawler takes down a team of Secret Service agents by seemingly being everywhere at once. Extra points for how they used his signature blue smoke and Bamf sound effect from the comics to turn everyone's favorite fuzzy elf into a demonic horror movie monster that can strike at any moment from any angle. The epic score of Mozart's Requiem adds to the tension, as it quiets when Nightcrawler can't be seen and erupts with operatic voices when he makes his surprise attack. And let's not forget how he uses his tail to chuck this poor dude down the hall like a ragdoll. Nightcrawler's time in the circus makes him a gifted acrobat, and he puts that to use in the way he executes a leg sweep down low and immediately teleports up and uses that momentum to deliver a devastating head kick. Nightcrawler was probably never on anyone's list for one of the most dangerous comic book characters ever created, but when you see how a room full of America's top bodyguards are next to useless against these combined skills, he certainly makes a case for it. There are a lot of flashy superpowers out there, but sometimes to get the job done, all you need is some brute strength. Whether a gift of godly parentage or a curse of atomic rage, having super strength to bench press a metric ton is a useful skill to have in a superhero movie. We get a primal satisfaction out of watching as all manner of sturdy material give way to their swollen muscles. But when it comes to super strength, sometimes less is more. Take Captain America, for example.
I could do this all day.
Even though Steve Rogers isn't the strongest one there is, the super soldier serum gives him just the right amount of super strength to where he far surpasses the average person, but he still strains to pull off truly Herculean feats. And he looks so cool doing it! When he pulls down Bucky's chopper in Civil War, he flexes his bulging biceps until they look ready to burst, delivering a thrilling feat of super strength and super friendship. Many heroes have the ability to channel the elements with their superpowers, but none of them look cooler, or should I say, hotter than fire. Nothing against bending water or summoning the wind, it's just that there's no topping a being fully engulfed in fire. Whether it's the Human Torch flaming on, or the Phoenix emanating the embers of rebirth, a smoldering hero is always a sight to behold. But when it comes to looking straight fire, no hero does it better than Ghost Rider.
Let's ride.
If there's one thing those Nick Cage movies did right, and from the reviews this may be the only thing they did right, it's making the spirit of vengeance look appropriately badass. Johnny Blaze becoming Ghost Rider remains one of the best and most horrifying superhero transformation sequences of all time, as we watch his skin melt and burn off until he's the fiery motorcyclist from hell we all know and love from the comics. And when he forges his bike into the iconic Hell Cycle and takes it for a ride alongside a flaming cowboy, it's like a heavy metal album cover come to life. The CGI fire in the first film was kind of tepid, but they fixed it in the sequel with more realistic flames, wispy black smoke, and a charred skull for good super speed is easily one of the coolest superpowers ever put to screen because it allows for so many stunning visuals.
So you're fast.
That feels like an oversimplification.
The MCU shows how speedsters move at blinding speed, like Makari whizzing past iconic landmarks as she makes her way around the globe, or Quicksilver appearing as little more than a blur as he saves innocents from being run over by a train. Then there's the DCU, where the Flash steps into the Speed Force and we see the world from his perspective in Matrix slow motion, and Superman even follows him for an impossible fight scene that takes place between seconds. But the be-all, end-all super speed sequence goes to the other Quicksilver from X-Men Days of Future Past.
Peter, take it slow.
When security opens fire on the escaping mutants, Peter kicks into high gear to the tune of Jim Croce's Time in a Bottle, and we watch in utter delight as he mischievously manipulates the momentum of fists and bullets. Whereas the other speedsters are all business, Quicksilver sets himself apart with this scene simply by having fun. It's how he takes a moment to taste the soup, knock off a guard's hat, boop a guard on the cheek just to make him look silly, give a guard a wedgie, and steal another guard's hat, all while preventing his new friends from getting shot to death. When time snaps back, it creates a comedy of collisions that would make the Three Stooges proud, and makes a lasting impression for Marvel's silliest speedster. The next superpower on our list isn't always a superpower, but it is always cool. Super advanced technology. Cyborg is, well, a cyborg.
He's a cyborg.
Whose body is half machine, and that's just cool on principle because he can transform his arm to a laser cannon or launch into the air with rockets sprouting out of his body, but his power doesn't stop there. He's essentially the god of the digital domain, where he can traverse the digital landscape, manipulating data and changing people's lives on a whim. Then there's Phastos of the Eternals, who builds a flurry of inventions during combat with but a gesture. But the coolest super tech users are just normal men with lots and lots of cash. Sure, they don't have actual superpowers, so I'm kind of cheating here, but in the comic book world, money is a superpower, and in this category, there's a tie.
What are your superpowers again?
I'm rich.
Bruce Wayne and Tony Stark each have vast fortunes that allow them to create armor, gadgets, and weapons with unlimited resources. Batman's high-tech arsenal has given him a citywide radar sense and a fighting chance against Superman. Let that sink in. Batman showed that there is a price tag on being able to kick Superman's ass. Sure, these billionaire playboy philanthropists are also geniuses, and that's what allows them to come up with the tech to put themselves on the same level as other superheroes, but it's a testament to the almighty dollar that if you have enough of them, you could fight God and stand a chance. Then there's Tony Stark, whose armor evolved from a shell of defensive plating to a nanotech suit capable of adapting to any situation. And no matter how many times we see it, watching Iron Man suit up is always cool. Something about all the robot hands building the armor around him and watching all the pieces click together is so satisfying. Like adult metal Legos for billionaires. Our next superpower won't be a shock to see on this list: lightning. Storm of the X-Men required great focus to bring down a bolt, her eyes going white as she focused her powers. Severe thunderstorms are one of the most awesome and dangerous things on the planet, so the thought of one person being able to channel that with her hands is pretty terrifying when you think about it. Like, that stuff is supposed to fry you to a crisp, but here she is using it to deliver spinning lightning bolt attacks in The Last Stand. Then there's our pair of magical lightning boys, Shazam and Black Adam. Now, Black Adam showed us the true extent of just how deadly the electrifying power set can be, while Shazam gave us another all-time great superhero transformation sequence. But no hero rides the lightning better than the God of Thunder himself, Thor.
Hit it with a lightning blast.
I just hit it with the biggest lightning blast in the history of lightning. It did nothing.
Watching him channel lightning with his enchanted hammer Mjolnir is a sight to behold, especially when he used it to great effect during the Battle of New York. But he truly ascended to another level in Ragnarok. After a reminder from dear old dad about what he's actually the god of, Thor unleashes a storm on Hela's minions, lightning arcing off his armor and his eyeball, and blasting away his enemies in a thunderous display that would make Lord Raiden jealous. Up until this point, Thor had always relied on his hammer to channel his power, but in this scene, he is the hammer, slamming down and plowing through the undead horde while surging with electricity. It's a fast-moving action scene, but we're given time to truly appreciate it at the start with the slow-motion shot of a fully charged up Odin son descending from above like a living thunderbolt. In this moment, Thor has seriously leveled up, as evidenced by how he uses the lightning to cover his back, strike multiple enemies at once, and literally grab and throw a minion to his demise. This next entry isn't so much one superpower as it is a package of superpowers that are often lumped together in what we're calling super everything. Of course, it was Superman who created this archetype, and he has flight, super strength, super speed, super durability, heat vision, x-ray vision, and ice breath. Many other heroes have been made in this mold with many variations over the years. But if a hero is incredibly strong with all manner of powers and no apparent upper limit, they're fair game for this category. Captain Marvel lit up like a Super Saiyan and literally didn't budge when Thanos tried to headbutt her. Icarus proved almost too much for the entire team of Eternals to overcome. But of course, the OG does it best, and we saw Superman unleash his powers like never before in Man of Steel. What makes this depiction of Superman's power so effective is that, above all else, it emphasizes just how powerful he is. It does that by pitting him against someone on his level, General Zod, and showing the impact their super strength has on the environment around them when they fight. When they hit each other, it emits a visible shockwave that makes concrete ripple like water. An uppercut from one of these guys sends the other rocketing up into the air. When Kryptonians fly, they generate their own propulsion, and we can see just how fast Superman moves through the air as the windows shatter as he zooms past. When Superman uses his heat vision, you can see the blood vessels in his face glow with energy before the beams erupt out of his eyes. We get a sense of just how hot it is when he melts a steel beam in seconds. If only he knew how to duck. And to top it all off, Superman and Zod trade mid-air blows, sending each other rocketing through the sky and creating the closest thing we have to a live-action Dragon Ball Z fight. Sometimes, a superpower doesn't need to be flashy to be cool, and that's the case with a healing factor. Deadpool used it to great comedic effect, treating his limbs as disposable means to an end. But when it comes to a mutant stitching their body back together after a grievous injury, nobody compares to Wolverine. Whenever he gets shot, it's oddly satisfying to watch his body eject the bullets and close up the wounds. His all-time great battle against Yuriko, aka Lady Deathstrike, was an endless exchange of lethal stab wounds, only pausing to heal up for another round. In a rare moment of vulnerability, Logan reveals that when he pops his claws, it hurts every time. That's what makes this power so fascinating to watch. Bullets bounce off the likes of Iron Man and Superman, but with Wolverine, he has to endure every fiery hot slug of lead piercing his skin, causing excruciating pain that he just has to grit his teeth through. No wonder he's so angry all the time. Spider-Man is like Superman in that he has a suite of powers that, when combined, we identify as spider powers. Wall climbing, spider sense, and web slinging, along with incredible strength and agility, not to mention great responsibility, make for one of the coolest power sets around. Spidey's abilities are just downright entertaining to watch, as he's essentially a circus performer who uses the city as his own personal playground. His action scenes are always a wild ride because he's essentially always in an incredibly dangerous situation, one wrong move away from falling to his death from 100 stories up, but his webs and stickiness actually allow him to use the skyscrapers to his advantage, and he has no problem duking it out on the sides of buildings and speeding trains. Spider-Man is not the most powerful hero around, but that's precisely what makes him so cool. He still needs to try. He still needs to dodge projectiles and strain to lift heavy objects. And it's always a thrill watching how he uses his amazing powers to get out of the next perilous predicament. And while those super everything heroes can effortlessly fly through the air, Spidey swings from webs, which, as far as my list is concerned, is the superior way to travel. Sure, flying is more practical, but swinging is way more fun. The power of flight is like flying coach, whereas web slinging is riding a roller coaster across the New York City skyline where you feel the rush of adrenaline every time Spidey fires a new web. Finally, I just could not resist the pull of the final and coolest superpower on this list, magnetism.
Too much iron in your blood.
That's right, the ability to manipulate magnetic waves in order to control all things metal is the coolest on-screen movie power I have ever seen. And given the explosion of superhero movies over the years, it's impressive that Magneto remains the only character to use this power on the big screen, played by two different actors. He's been the sole master of magnetism since the year 2000, and for good reason. Throughout human history, we have become increasingly reliant on metal, and we use it in virtually everything, everywhere. That's what makes Magneto so dangerous. He uses our dependence on that shiny, precious ore to his advantage. With his powers, he was able to take a squad of police officers' guns and turn them on their owners. And just like that, without breaking a sweat, he tips the balance of power in his favor. And in an astounding intimidation move, he proved just how skilled he is with his power by catching a fired bullet just before it pierced a man's forehead. It gives me a headache just watching that. Magneto also used his power for what remains to this day the coolest cinematic prison break scene ever, pulling out the metal injected into a security guard's body and using it to break out of his plastic prison by forming it into a small platform to stand on and a pair of small but deadly wrecking balls. Magnetism is one of the strongest naturally occurring forces on the planet, and Magneto never misses an opportunity to showcase that fact, as he lifts entire bridges and stadiums into the air as the opening move to his master plans. And let's not forget Magneto's most badass scene where young Eric Lensher hunts down some Nazis and uses everything from a knife to their fillings to get the job done. It just doesn't get any cooler than that. And those are my picks for the 10 coolest movie superpowers. Let me know your picks in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and for more super cool lists, keep coming back to IGN.